Welcome, everyone, to the RPG Goblin, a TTRPG exploration podcast slash podcast where people can just talk about their favorite games because that's just the coolest thing. I am your host and resident goblin, Willow, and I run this podcast. I ask all the questions. I'm a little obsessed, and we've literally been recording for almost an hour before this because we've just been talking about games. So it'll be a great episode today. Today we are going to be talking about Afterglow with the creator Steph, and I am very excited about this because I've been following along this game getting made throughout my time on Twitter, and it's done and it's beautiful and it's gorgeous, and you'll get to see it on video here, and if you're listening via audio, you should go check it out. But let me give the floor over to Steph to introduce who she is, where you can find her and see Afterglow and all of that cool stuff. So Steph, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for having me on, first of all.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
been a great first hour of talking. You're very fun to talk to, so thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm Steph. I'm a UK based artist, designer, game designer, that sort of thing. And then part-time, I have a little marketing job.
Fun.
You can find me on Twitter as Freya Leigel, and Fistful of Crits, which is my business account, and then also Threads and Instagram as Fistful of Crits. I'm not brave enough for TikTok yet, but we might get to that next year.
I think you need to go to TikTok, show everyone how cool the book is, and you'll get instantly popular. I think it'll be great. It's a fantastic idea.
I watch a lot of them. Making one frightens me. I am 30.
Yeah, no,
I'm in my 30s.
You will be fine. You will do great. You come across on camera super well. You are very entertaining. I think you'll be awesome. I know I've been I've been wanting to get on TikTok a bit too as well. It's like, oh man, I want to talk about games, but then it's like short form. I'm bad at short form content. If you can't tell, I mean, my episodes are usually almost 2 hours long. I am bad at keeping things short because I just want to talk. But all of those links for Steph and where you can find her will be in the description of the episode, just to have ease of finding her and all of that fun stuff. But we are talking about Afterglow today. But
yes.
Before we fully get into that, I want to ask you a question beforehand, just kind of get a taste of some of your TTRPG experiences and such. And I'd love to ask, what are some of your favorite games and games that have actually influenced your design? Because I know we've kind of been talking about your TTRPG experience beforehand, which you guys can, I guess, check out on Patreon ? But
yes.
But I would love to actually hear about some of your favorite games, and especially ones that have influenced your designing process with TTRPGs. Excuse me.
Sure. Yes. So I love graphically striking games, and I think the game for me that takes the crown of that is Morkborg.
Oh, for sure.
It's. I remember seeing it at a convention and going, "Whoa, that yellow is yellow."
Yeah, it's a little intense.
What's that about? And also being, the occasional metalhead myself, OSR sort of fan, picked up and went, I must have. So a lot of those zines, Morkborg zines I have on my shelf from various designers. Chris Bissett is my favourite Morkborg designer, actually. Just graphically striking games like that. I think in terms of design philosophies, Blades in the Dark and systems around, dice pools, narrative forward-facing rule sets, things like that. I'm looking at my shelf up here with what else I have.
No, I feel that it's like anytime someone's like, what games have you played? Let me look at the shelf.
I mean, all of them. I have so many beautiful indie games that give me lots of different sources of inspiration. I was just talking to you about Orchard Delirium by Ether Corp, which is visually a stunning piece of artwork, as well as just a really fun and engaging, different sort of game. I will shout about Luke's work from the treetop because he does just really fascinating stuff. And then also Fari RPGs, who actually kind of wrote Firelights and the SRD that Afterglow is based off. Pandian Games, I really love Andy's approach to like narrative tension without violence. I think that's really important in certain types of gaming group flow.
I agree.
Yeah, it's more about collaborative teamwork. I think he's just released. This is just me like shouting out all the people that I like. But,
Absolutely.
Coyote and Badger, Badger and Coyote, which is like a two-player game of like collaboration, and that's really sweet. I really love.
They did Banda's Grove, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I love Bandas. It's going under some design rework at the moment, I think. I actually designed a supplement for Bandas in the jam.
That's cool.
Last year, I want to say. So yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, another person, even Hinakodo, the Miru series is just really amazing as well. Procedural map generated adventure where you kill a cyborg god. Like, yeah. I
have never heard of this. Oh, that's amazing.
I will link you to Miru because, again, one of my favorite indie game series. I've nearly finished my playthrough of Miru 2. So yeah, I think like games that particularly are made by people who have different design philosophies to me are quite interesting. I'm new to designing games, so I'm still figuring out what mine is. I haven't made my own system yet. That is on the card for 2024.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yes, I'm turning Toe Beans away from 5e and I'm making it its own system. Woo! Where you manage a magical cafe of cats.
Okay, I love that. That's so cute. Yes, magical cat cafe for the win.
Yeah, cozy journaling games.
Yes.
So yes,
we love those in this house.
Yes.
No, I love that, and I'm curious. You mentioned that like Blades in the Dark is like one that you like the design philosophy around it. And you mentioned like that you're going to be starting to play like Courts of Blades and stuff like that. Yes. Like, would you say that Forged in the Dark is a system that specifically like kind of sticks out for you? Because you've mentioned that one a few times.
Yeah, I think so. We were having a discussion pre-episode about everyone has the game that clicks with them, and I think Blades in the Dark for me is such an interesting system because while I'm not a huge fan of the setting like Duskfall, I really love the ease of the mechanics. The flashback stuff is really interesting.
The flashback stuff is fantastic.
It's so good, but then also it's a very high risk, high reward system. So when I play Blades, I have a group of friends that I play with. The running joke is that we don't play Blades unless a boat gets set on fire because we are always setting boats on fire. But yeah, the dice pool mechanics, I think in Blades are very interesting to me, where you can push yourself. Devil's Bargain with the GM is really cool. I know that there's a lot of conversation right now about stress and trauma mechanics in games and sort of their place in them. But I think if you're playing a game with safety tools and with people that you know are going to respect that sort of thing, it is a really interesting mechanic for me personally to add, to build upon your character's story, really. Blades is a system that always sticks out to me, and I think eventually I would like to try and make a hack of it.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
But then Court of Blades is interesting because it's a hack of Blades. I said before, the designers are super, super lovely, and it's very richly a setting that I would enjoy running, I think.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, setting does matter. I like how you said that about Blade. Like, you're not a super big fan of like the Duskfall setting in general, but like then everything else that comes with it. Because I actually think that the Duskfall setting is one of the reasons that kind of got me interested in Blades. But like I just the way that they kind of set it out, like initially, like in the book when you read it and open it up and they like describe the whole thing of like the wall of blood or the wall of lightning powered by demon's blood and like the gritty industrial feel, like that's something that definitely kind of clicks with me. But I love that having like those other supplements like Court of Blades, I know Scum and Villainy, things like that, other settings that you can connect with and then still enjoy the system, because it's definitely it is a very, very beautiful system that I do hope to play one day. I've only played World of Blades, which is just really simplified version, because it's like I want to play one shot and I don't want to go through all of the setup for Blades in the Dark. I haven't properly played a Blades game yet. It's upsetting. Like I said, I've played World of Blades, which is very simplified, but not actual
Oh
Blades
no,
yet.
okay. When I next run a game, I would love to have you come in because Blades is such a good system.
Yeah, no, that would be
Everyone needs to
awesome.
play it.
No, I would be down for
Um,
that. I've been really wanting to play it since like I read it like last year around like the end of like when we got hit by the hurricane. Like it was Vaesen and Blades were like the two books that I was reading during that time because we didn't have like internet because it like all got hit by the hurricane, so it was all down and stuff. So it's like, okay, I'll just read TTRPG books, and that was like the best time.
you got in on the pre-hype for Vaesen, huh? Because you cannot pick a
Yeah.
copy of that up at the moment.
Oh really? No, I've
Yeah,
had Vaesen. I've had Vaesen for a while, since that's another one that's just instantly clicked in my mind of like, this is a beautiful game. It's probably
mm,
one of my favorite books on my shelf, just visually and like feeling
yeah.
wise. I love Free League Publishing, but
I've yet to pick it up, but it is
you
on my list. Yeah.
it is gorgeous. It is one of my favorite
Ooh,
bestiaries, and like the way that the monsters work. I love it so much. I'm
okay,
hoping to do an
okay.
episode on it very soon too. But we are going to be talking about Afterglow today. And I love that we talked about these games that have given you some inspiration that you love too, because I think that's something that I want to start asking designers more, because I think it's interesting to hear your perspective of, the games that have clicked with you, because I think that can show where some of your decisions design wise can
Yeah.
come in with your actual games. And so with Afterglow, I would love if, kind of start this out. Could you give kind of the elevator pitch for Afterglow? Give a brief description of like what the game is, and then we'll like dive in deeper. But just for everyone at home who doesn't know what it is and all that stuff, can you give us an elevator pitch?
I'm really bad at this. I will
You're
do
you're
my
good.
best.
See,
So,
we're not actually in an elevator. You can have a little extra time.
so
Yeah, start playing some music.
I made Afterglow. A wizard basically ruins the world, okay?
Yeah.
And I made Afterglow as an exploration into whether or not, if you had the chance, you would keep the world as it was or return it back to what it was before you knew it.
Ooh, I like
And
that. Yeah.
so you get the choice. I've kind of laid down a mild setting, but I think in the opening part of the book, what was really important to me was the person playing was able to put their stamp on it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's part of the fun for me as a person that plays a lot of these sorts of games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've created the rules for the setting that you
Mm-hmm.
can then expand upon. And one of those is, would you return the glow or not? And
Yeah.
that could change through your play. The villain of the game, because I did want it to feel very like it had a beginning and a middle and an
Mm-hmm.
end. You get to decide what their motivations were as well.
Yeah. I love it.
Whether they were, road to hell is paved in good intentions, or if they are just like the evil BBEG.
Mm-hmm.
So my elevator pitch, I think, would be: do you want to play a journaling game that you could also play with a friend? Do you want to kill a wizard?
Do you want to kill a wizard?
Who and what is the wizard? Because I
Yeah.
don't ever specify, and I think that's kind of fun. I remember I posted the back page on Twitter, which I think is it started when a wizard cleaved apart the temple into two, and
Yes.
someone was
Yes.
like, "Go hard or go home," huh? And I was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
just like what we were saying with Blades, like something that kind of grasped me was like kind of that introduction where it's like you kind of set the scene there. That was another
yes,
one that got me too. Is like,
oh,
the wizard cleaves it in half. It's like, oh shit, like, and
yeah."
it kind of it gives you that moment like shit got real when you like just started the game, and so it
Yeah.
does really help set that tone. I like it a lot.
I wanted to establish, because for me, like in any game that I've played, if I'm told this is the setting and you cannot deviate from it, I'm
Hmm.
like, boring.
Yeah.
Um, but like we were talking before, but what about ducks?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I wanted
What about
ducks.
ducks?
I wanted to kind of write it so that it had some structure, but
Yeah.
at any point in time, if it didn't serve you, you could throw it away or
Yeah,
you could
just
change it.
enough structure to have an idea, but not enough structure to like box you into this
Yes.
is the only story, this is the only thing that you can go through. I like that a lot. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, I one of my favorite games right now is Land of Eam, and what something that I love about it is that it gives you a lot of structure. It's
Yeah.
basically like the Muppets meets Lord of the Rings, and it gives you a lot.
Sorry,
It
what?
gives.
Is Michael Caine in this one? Like Tim Curry? I don't...
Yeah, unfortunately not. No,
Okay.
yeah, it's the Muppets meets Lord of the Rings, and it's basically just this really whimsical like world that's like mystical, like fantasy and stuff like that, but like really goofy. Like you can play as frog people and whale people and bird people and all, and like even
How
kind of like a
cute.
Muppet type person, and you are in like a era of like industrial dungeoning and all of this different things, and so it's like there's gloom there and there's like destruction, but it's like this whimsical like version of it. It's really really cute.
Oh, you have to link me to this.
I
Because
absolutely will. It's
yeah.
I have the PDFs of the game. I haven't gotten the actual print copies yet. I backed it on BackerKit like summer of last year, and I love
Okay.
it so much. It makes me happy. But like it does a lot of this stuff of like kind of setting the tone for the game, but
Yeah.
it leaves so much open that you can make it your own, and that's something I've been really appreciating more and more with TTRPGs the more I've been getting into
Yeah.
them. And so like you saying like, yeah, I don't want to set that much up beforehand, I think really connects with me. And I'm curious though of like what gave you the idea even for that story setting idea of like the wizard cleaves the temple in half. Like what's the story behind that?
I have this fascination in the way that I approach stories with how we approach the concept of good versus evil and
Mm-hmm.
magic versus technology. And I love, I think I made a D&D supplement called Firefall that was about sort of a star festival and
Mm-hmm.
celestial bodies and things like that.
Cool.
So I kind of wanted to float the idea of a world that was completely fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
um, if you wanted it to be, but it had this dichotomy of what you could consider good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I was nervous in the design approach, that people would think if you play a Dawncarver, you play as a good person, and if you play a Nightweaver, you play as a bad person. And
Yeah.
no, um, like you can flip that on your head. You get to decide what that is. You even get to
Yeah.
decide what the relationship is between the gods or was. Were they
I love
friends or
it.
lovers or enemies? These are all kind of
Mm-hmm.
questions that I posed to you really early on in the document. But I think I really love the idea in narrative stories of gods being a force in the world. I think I've never, I'm not religious. I don't come from a religious
Mm-hmm.
background. I'm pagan actually, but I really like the idea that if you knew that the gods actually existed and that they had influence over you, what would society look like, and what would the fallout from that be if they left?
Yes, like all of the things you just said is something I also really love in storytelling. Like the
Yeah,
the good and evil and what evil means and like bad and all of that, and if it is also truly bad and like the different perceptions that you can have on that, and God's
yeah,
having like an actual like they are a force in the world. That's actually in my first D&D game that I like
yeah,
ran, like my homebrew game. Like I made a Pantheon just because I wanted to play around with gods actually like affecting the world and kind of how that would work. So like
yeah,
all of these like everything you just said like has been like lighting
yeah.
sparks in my brain of like, yes, I love that, I love that, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Neil Gaiman's fault, because I think one of my very, very formative experiences with comics was reading The Sandman, and
Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
you must read it. It is essential, essential storytelling. But like the characters in there have aspects of like death and dream and destiny,
Yeah.
and they have an effect on the mortal world. And I think with Afterglow, I wanted to kind of take some of that flavoring. I think
Mm-hmm.
also another inspiration is Ursula Le Guin. Her approach to storytelling is just fantastic. Particularly, she does sci-fi and fantasy, both are
Mm-hmm.
knockout, stellar. book angles that she kind of takes to, but just her fantasy work is really rich and really introspective. And AfterGlow is none of those things, but I wanted to, that mysticism of the unknown and the bit that you can quantify and you can't quantify and how you interpret that is really interesting to me in a design way, in a storytelling way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for me that's half the fun with journaling games. Because I had a friend recently, she's just sort of getting into journaling games. She's like, but I don't understand the point because I can just write a story. And I'm like, yes, but take the control away from you and put it to an engine like a game. And how will that change your storytelling?
Exactly. And that's what I love about journaling games. I've never been someone to really write, but journaling games and TTRPGs in general, though, actually give me inspiration to do that, because there are those unknown forces of like, I can't control all of this. I don't know what's going to happen the next session of my Monster of the Week game. I'm like, I could write the story of like, you know, my whole Monster of the Week game, but it wouldn't be as interesting as giving it in the hands of my players and like, okay, what are you guys doing? And how do you change the story and change the world? And so like, yes, I agree with the same thing. Like it's a very interesting experience because you don't have that control. Yeah, you don't have it. And then like getting the prompts as well, especially I've seen quite a few solo journaling games where just the prompts alone, I start getting ideas from it, because it's like, these are just so good. Like they just immediately spark ideas, and maybe you wouldn't have even thought about them. And then the different ways that you can interpret them, even better.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I play tested this with my sister in the summer and it didn't work. And I was like, oh no, this is why you do it. It works now. And I've started doing my own playthrough. And what I found was my card draws were terrible. So I had an idea of how I wanted the story to go. It has not gone that way. And I'm playing both books, interchangeable 2 characters. And the Dawn Carver at the moment had an idea of what she wanted to do and has been ambushed and has nearly died and has had to leave a message for her friend. And now I've swapped playbook for her friend to come and find her. That was not where I thought that was going to go, but there it goes, you know, and it will be a richer, more complicated story for it. Because I think sometimes writers will know this. Your first draft is not the best draft. And with journaling games, I really love that it, and, you know, playing narrative games with your friends, it introduces the what if, the now this happens, how are you responding to it sort of thing. Because I also had that mindset. I like to write, and initially when I picked up the Sealed Library by Matt Sanders of the Sealed Library, and I was like, well, I could just write this story. Then I played the game and went, not like this though. Like,
it wouldn't have been the emotional roller coaster it was.
I think we as humans, particularly if you're not used to writing a lot, can just fall into the same narrative patterns. And what I love about indie game engines for solo or cooperative, like Afterglow, it just introduces a bit of a stone. And how you pivot and how you respond to that will actually help you as a writer and you as a gamer.
Exactly. Yes, it helps expand your not even your creativity, but like the way that you can even, you know, what's your initial ideas. Like, I guess that's creativity, but it's even improv too, is because it's like, especially if you're playing a game in the moment. I love running my games with mostly doing improv. I will do like I'll do a big chunk of prep at the beginning of like an arc or whatever, and then like go through the rest of it without writing anything else, because I think that makes my brain like happy, if that makes sense. Like that's where it engages my brain of like, you are presenting me situations that then I have to react to, and I get to try and stretch my creativity and my skills as a GM that way. And I think that's really fun, and that's something I've really loved about the solo journaling games too, is that's a really good way to practice that without having to be like in a full game, because it can be hard to arrange like, hey friends, do you want to play like 6 games a week, and so that I can like
but then you also like have this beautiful record of what you've done.
Yes, which
I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of games that I've played.
as a note taker in like normal TTRPG games, both as a player and a GM,
A
that makes me
unicorn.
insanely happy.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, my approach to GMing is mostly improv. If
Mhm.
any of my group are watching this,
Hi.
I'm watching. So I say this to them all the time. Like, what they do in the world that we've made together
Mhm.
is what interests me. Like, if I wanted to just go and write the
Yeah,
story of our game, I could do that, fine. But
exactly.
there've been so many pivotal moments where I've gone, wait, what?
Mhm.
Oh, that's really cool, and I will go and build something. So I build
Mhm.
set pieces, not narrative.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of improv skill is very important in game design and also just running and being in games. And I think
Mhm.
solo journaling is absolutely the thing that will prep you for that.
Oh, for sure. And at
Yeah.
least for me, I've even used it as practice because I always haven't been the best at describing scenes and stuff like that. And a big thing
Yeah.
I think is like I've never been a huge reader. I like especially when it comes to fiction books. I've basically been a nonfiction reader like my entire life. And what's
Oh
been
my gosh.
I know it surprises a lot of people. I've never been a reader, and
Mhm.
it's been really interesting with like the TTRPGs specifically because for me, it's a great way for me to experience fiction like media through a nonfiction lens because I
That's
can read.
so interesting.
Yeah, I love reading through TTRPG books so much, and I like reading through like the examples of play that they give and like the world building.
Yeah.
That's why for like Blades, that's something that like I loved is because it's like, oh, they're giving me this whole setting, but it's not like an actual story. It's I'm gonna read about mechanics later. Like this is gonna be great, but I have that whole idea of the setting, and
Wow.
it like helps me like tie it in with like game and all of that. I love it.
That's
It's
so
so fun.
cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people that I know in the industry are big readers.
Yeah.
Myself included, although I've just been stuck in France with Alexander Dumas this year. That's all I've done. Musketeers.
Nothing
Um,
wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that because I'm going to run a Court of Blades campaign that's Musketeers
Exactly.
related.
It's research.
Um,
It's research. It's fine.
but if you forced me to sit down and read nonfiction, I would cry. Whereas my business partner is Logan, who was the other half of Fistful of
Mhm.
Crits. He reads technical manuals for fun, and I'm like, what? what?
How? No, it's interesting how different brain like I think part of it is that like I know there's a thing with basically some people can imagine things in their head and some people can't. And I'm someone who can't imagine
Aphantasia?
I don't know what it's called, but I know it is a phenomenon. I
Yeah.
can't imagine anything in my head. Like I can't think of an
Okay.
apple and see an apple. And for me that's something that I've always struggled with reading fiction books is that I've never been able to
Yeah.
really pick up like they can be describing this whole scene and it means nothing to me because like I can't really imagine it and it doesn't really capture me. Then when I'm reading nonfiction I can put those ideas to actual things. Like I can
You can
connect those
quantify it.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can connect that better in my head. So it's like, okay, this is what connects with me. And especially with TTRPGs, that's been even better because it's like I get to read about mechanics and I can think about, like, not even imagine, but think about. Like, I just think mostly. I just think about how
That's
that
so
can
cool.
work. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
have to recommend you. I can't remember the full name off the top of my head. I will link it to you. But it's basically a setting for it's a system neutral setting
Mhm.
in a city that's always raining.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
it is so in depth and
Mhm.
so cool. And I picked it up from an indie seller in Germany. And I was like, I want to write something like this one day, where
Mhm.
it's just no mechanics. It's just like hardcore, all the vibes,
Yeah.
setting.
World building.
I think you'd really like it. I will. I can't remember. Is it like Everything in the Rainy City? I'll find it for you because I think you'd really like that. But
Yeah, I
yeah, it's
think
like
this
the
is going to
different
end with
approach.
both of us just linking games back and forth. I'm so excited.
I am dangerous. I'm so dangerous for people's wallets and like, oh, you should play this. You should play this.
I love
But
it. No,
yes,
this is great. Yeah, no, I always find it really interesting to actually talk to people about like that's why I really like getting into like introduction into these games and like the media and stuff like that that connects with
yeah,
people because it is so interesting because I know that my perspective is so different compared to a lot of different people.
It's so cool though.
People,
Like
yeah.
the fact that we all approach things differently,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in a gaming space, and to have a game that you can find, you know, your particular pleasure in.
Yeah.
So there's, like we were saying before, like there's people that are like dead rules heavy.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that, you know, preferred like just setting and
Mm-hmm.
vibe, and then there's people in the middle who can kind of, you know, do a
Yeah.
bit of everything. I think it's great. You know, the more varied approaches we have to games and game design, I think is more the merrier. You know,
Exactly. And I think that's I mean, off of that is even like play style too, and how the way that you've been introduced into these games can change your play style, and it's so good to play with groups that like match together. Like if you can find a
yes,
group that you have matching play styles, it is like the best thing in the world. Because I know for me, like, you know, I am super into the storytelling and piecing things together of like how the different actions in the games work out. And so I'm super into like the storytelling and the RP and stuff like that. And so when it
yeah,
comes to just like a more rule, like when it comes to people who are super into the rules and don't really want to get into those aspects of the game and want to play like, oh, you know, let's clear out a dungeon, that's really fun, I want to try that someday, I want to run a game like that someday just to see how it would go. But that's
yeah,
not something for me that I would be running a longer term game of, because that's not what really connects and where my play style is personally. So I always
yeah.
find it really fun to think about that, of like how all these different elements changes how everyone plays these games, and how you can enjoy your own personal games and all this stuff. I love it. I love
Yeah,
these
I mean,
games.
one of the challenges that I came up against when I was first writing for D&D with toe beans. So I prefer improv, and so when
Mhm.
I'm running a module book, which I don't do now because I just don't find it very fun.
Mhm.
But somebody would be like, "I do this," and you have to be like,
Yeah.
"Right,
Flip through whatever, and then they're so
what was that?
badly
Sorry."
laid out too, and so it's
Yeah,
really hard to find the information unless you like
but
prep
like
beforehand, and it's like
you're also designing for a table you don't know.
mm-hmm.
So one of the first hurdles that I was coming up against, even just for D&D, which is I think a very easy system to write for, was
Mm-hmm.
what level should I stat these monsters for?
Yeah.
How does encounter balancing in fact work when
Mm-hmm.
you don't know who your players are? Loosey goosey it is.
Yep.
And you have to trust that people will take what you've done and add their flair to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the fun things with toe beans that then gave me the confidence with like the breathing and afterglow is I've had people come up to me and be like, "Oh yeah, I put toe beans in Curse of Strahd," and I'm like, "You did what? How did that work for you?"
Tell
And
me all
also
about it.
Eglon. And
Oh,
I had somebody say
interesting.
that they didn't even put it in a D&D world; they put it in an Ironsworn game, and I was like, "Sick."
Actually,
Actually,
yeah.
yeah, I think I published the review
There's
on our website because I was like, "That's cool."
what is the one called where it's like an Ironsworn? It's an Ironsworn. Oh God, what's the word? Hack, but it's like a cozy Stardew Valley type game. It's like Iron Farm, or I can't remember the
Oh, I don't
exact
think
name
I've
of
seen
it.
that, but that's fun.
Yeah, no, it's really fun, and I think that would be like perfect. Like, okay, here's Tobine's mystical cat cat. I love
Honestly,
that.
I was like, "What?" Published the review. Okay, that's
That's so
great. Thank
cool.
you. But I think there's people think that you have to like release a game and have it be like definitive.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I said. No, you don't.
Yeah.
So I've picked through Afterglow post release and gone, maybe I could have been a bit clearer about this or this,
Mm-hmm.
but then you just have to trust that the person that's reading it kind of is okay with going, well, I'm going to decide that it's this.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'll interpret it this way, which I think is always fun. I like playing games and interpreting rules in the ways that I want to, because I
Me
think it
too.
can create, because again, it is a table to table experience. Like maybe
Mhm.
these rules work this way really well for a table that's super into let's just kill a monster, and maybe these rules need to be slightly changed for if, hey, let's talk about our let's flirt in a Victorian era, and like all of
Mm.
that. Like, you know, you got to change it up, which those would be probably two different games, but
Yeah,
unless
yeah, but
Victorian
each one
area
fun in
monster
its own
hunting.
way.
Yeah. I just like thinking about these types of things in games a lot. And I think that's definitely where my pleasure in TTRPGs come from. I know a lot of people like get really into the writing and world building and stuff like that. But for me, I just love thinking about them and thinking about like, how does this work? How would a group of
Yeah.
these types of players function in a, I don't know, Apocalypse Keys game? Which I swear I want to
Yeah.
play that game so bad, and I need like a very specific group for it. It's a beautiful game.
Oh yeah, I've got a few games on my shelf like that. Bluebeard Bride,
Oh yeah, I've heard that
Kingdoms.
one.
Yeah, loads of different. I mean, I'm looking at my shelf now. Like, what have I
We just
got?
need to have like a
Mortfog. I
TTRPG
mean,
book club where it's like, here's all the games and here's how ideally, here's like what kind of group I would want, and
mhm,
like going through like
yeah,
here's how I would want to play with this game, because like that's my favorite thing. That's why I love being a GM. Like I know people sometimes are
yeah.
like, oh man, I'm a forever GM, boo, but like I love it so much.
No,
Like it
I love
makes me
that shit.
happy.
Yes, me
So
too. Like,
good.
I love playing,
Hmm.
but DMing is where I get my kicks.
Yeah, same.
I think that's why I've been a DM for 3 years with the same group. They've
Woo!
chained me to the table.
You have no other choice.
Yeah,
No, I love that.
but thankfully I'm getting into a lot of like online groups where we're
Hmm.
playing lots of different things. So I played like Cyborg recently, which was
Yeah.
fun. Wander Home, we're doing a play by post. Literally, as soon as I wrap this interview up, I've got to go and help them world build a little
So
bit.
exciting. I love
Yeah,
it. No, I
games.
games, which I love. And so I would love to get into actually like playing Afterglow and how
Cool.
that works, since you've mentioned, so it is a journaling game. It is a solo or a cooperative up to 2 players, right?
Yeah. So Afterglow is based on a system by Fari RPGs,
Hmm.
and René Pierre is just the sweetest bean ever. When I was first getting into game design, I was kind of searching like, okay, I know you can hack systems, and I think I
Hmm.
just need something that clicks with me, that I can kind of fit a vibe to. And I came across Breathless, which is
Hmm.
a quick D6 system. Um, I think originally he pitched it as like a zombie apocalypse game, and I turned it into Dark Academia House of Leaves
Of course.
weird statue game. Yeah. But what I love about Fari RPG systems is, one, he's so generous with mechanics. Like, he will
Hmm.
make a beautiful game and then throw up the SRD and be like, have fun. Um, and it's kind of taught me game design.
Yeah.
Even though I've only made like 2 games from his systems,
Hmm.
picking them apart and kind of looking through a beautifully presented SRD, I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of view him, Pandian, and Matt Sanders as like the TTRPGs big brothers, where
Aw.
if you have a question, they will like answer it for you.
Yeah, no, I
And
love
so I made
that.
Breathless.
Hmm.
I made a game called The Breathing. It's really funny because it looks totally different to like any vibe. And at conventions, people are like, "Who did your business partner make this?" I'm like, "No, me." But then he released Firelights, which was like originally a really small kind of DL-sized
Hmm.
pamphlet Metroidvania game where you have 3 stats,
Hmm.
and you kind of explore through the world. So like a
Yeah.
generative map system.
Yeah,
And I was
almost like
like,
it kind
that's
of reminds
fun.
me of maybe Rune a little bit by Gila RPG.
Gila, yeah, Gila's work is beautiful. I at the time was playing Miru by Hinakodo.
Hmm.
Hinakodo? I never know if I'm saying that right. Hino, if you ever watch this, please let me know. Um, but so I was like, cool, exploration game.
Hmm.
That's interesting. I don't know that I want it to be like a hex tile thing
Yeah.
or a note card system, but I want people to have the choice to draw a map if they want, but like
Hmm.
maybe the exploration is the narrative.
Yeah.
um so I took the SRD and kind of came up with this, wizard temple gods thing, and thought it'd be really interesting to have a solo journaling game that you could play with somebody, because I play a lot of games with my sister, and a lot of
Hmm.
those are world builder games.
Yeah.
And I thought, wouldn't it be fun if we both had like an individual playbook
Hmm.
that we could kind of bounce off each other, or if you were by yourself and you wanted to play 2 playbooks, you could.
Yeah, I like that
Um,
idea a lot.
Yeah, and what we came across in playtesting was not knowing how to structure it, i.e. in like a turn order.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us playing Beak, Feather and Bone to realize none of that matters if you just want to tell a story with somebody. So stripped out kind of these attempts at like, you can do this or you can do this. Like, no, you can do whatever you like, because who am I to tell you that?
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think Fiery RPG's rules in Firelights are so elegant, in that they're so minimal and you can kind of hack and add into that. So one of the things that I added was like a skill tree, because initially my approach was I wanted like a level up system before realizing that just didn't need to be a thing. So it
Yeah.
just went on the cut before. But what I did like was the introduction of like skills that you can pick from
Yeah, I
to
saw
kind of
those,
give your
which I
character a
thought,
little bit more edge.
yeah.
Because it is hard. It is hard. This game is hard. But give them a bit more edge, but then also give them a little more of a personality. So, you know, my Dawn Carver is lucky, so she gets to like re-roll stats, and the way that I flavored that is she just does it wrong on purpose the first time, just to push herself to
I
see,
love that. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I really like the fact that people put SRDs up, particularly Fari RPGs, and also like Pandian. I think those are the two designers whose work I really admire the most. And I think if you want to learn game design, start over there. Like,
Yeah, I was
start with a
wondering that.
system. Yeah, I think start with a system that's very easy, that's very hackable. If you just want to attach a setting to a rule mechanic first to kind of dip your toes in, do that. Because I think that's the only way you learn game design. I mean, I've made about 3 games. One of them isn't public, and now I feel ready to sort of make my own system. Hence, Tobin's
Yeah.
next year.
So exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I hope. But yes, I think anyone can do game design. Anybody, just do it. You like small increments. Like I went from a couple of years ago never finishing anything to having like a pile of games that I've made on my shelf,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
I
Yeah.
did this thing.
I did it. Like I look at like I've got toe beans in Firefall like up on my shelf. I've got the breathing, which like I'm so proud of this still, because it's like the first thing that like, I finished. And now I get to add Afterglow. Totally different vibes.
which absolutely show off Afterglow here. Like, look, everyone, just look how beautiful it is. It is one of the most gorgeous things I've seen in like the world. Like seriously, I love just like the purple pink kind of slightly orange aesthetic. Like it's gorgeous. Makes me very
I have
happy.
a joke on my Twitter because a lot of my work is limited color palettes. So anytime I put something new up and people are like the colors, I'm like, we love a limited color palette.
Yeah, because it then makes you be creative with it too. Because then you have to really think about your colors and like how you're going to use them. Because like my brother is an artist, and so I've heard a lot of stuff from him just passively of like him doing his artwork and stuff. And so I think that's also beautiful too of like limiting the color palette. And then you have those themes throughout the book too. Because then with the Dusk Weaver and the
Dawn Carver.
Oh, I was like gonna say Dawn Carver. Then I'm like, wait, am I mixing up which one's which? Shit. Sorry. But the Dusk Weaver and the Dawn Carver, do they have their associated colors? Yeah, they do. Which I think is also beautiful itself, of like having like the opposites, but also not, because they have each other's colors in the palette too. It's just how they're used differently. I just think that's beautiful. But I would love to actually get into like what the Duskweaver and the Dawn Carver are, how those playbooks work, and a bit of actually like starting the game. Like, what's the process of character creation and starting the game, if someone's playing it?
Sure. So they are gods of this world. You get to choose what their interaction is. So I think I've had it suggested that they could be lovers or friends or siblings or even the same gods in different sides.
Yeah, like a Moana type thing even too.
Yeah, a little bit. Like you get to decide what their relationship was, you get to decide their impact, your culture, that sort of thing.
Which is just beautiful.
And on starting the game, there's like a setup phase where I ask you a ton of questions about, what is the world? Where do you come from? are you an acolyte of the Dawncarver or the Weaver, or maybe both? If you're playing with a friend, then I kind of posit, are you friends, are you strangers? How well do you know each other? You know, just basic things so that you get an idea of where you're starting from.
Yeah.
And then it goes a little bit into how the game is played, which is super simple. You have 2d6, a deck of cards, some time to sit down and journal, and that's it really. But you start off by explaining why you're going on this journey, and then drawing cards to discover the next region that you land in.
Yeah.
Now I have like tables at the back that you can roll on to help you if you're not quite sure. And they're kind of themed either neutrally or more towards the Dawncarver or the Nightweaver, Emma Felger and Elastrel. There's also, if you're not sure narratively what you're doing in an area, you can kind of roll to see what people are there or what the theme of the interaction might be. So in my playthrough at the moment, my Dawncarver has got into a bit of trouble because I drew some horrible high cards and some low dice rolls and went, oh no! And so I've switched over to the Nightweaver, who is currently dealing with like a trader, trying to get some offerings so that he can kind of pray to Elastrel and figure out where his friend's gone.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was what was going to happen, but I'm also going to draw like a bit of a map and see where they kind of intersect and meet. Not in a hex tile way, just like a quiet year,
like free form, like this is kind of just basic reference of like what's kind of going on.
Like an adventure map.
Yeah, I do really love the idea though of like being able to switch between those playbooks and like going back and forth, like especially if you're playing solo.
Yes.
Because like you can be like, all right, here's what's happening here, and then like when things get really, because that's even like a fun way to structure a story, like things like when you're playing one with a group of people and like when you can switch like the spotlight and the scenes between characters and they're kind of split up, that's where it can be really fun, is like things get tense, ramp up, and it's like, okay, we're gonna switch over here, then like you can have that meeting point, and so you can have those really fun like narrative moments there where it's like, all right, things are getting dicey here, let's see what we can do.
And then, like, through that, there is the structure of you're trying to find the wizard. And I think there isn't a chance to encounter the wizard's location, but the wizard won't spawn unless you've defeated all the threats. So
fun.
It's very, like, conceivable that you could kind of go to the mountain. He, it, they, she, whatever you decide that the wizard isn't there. And you know, you can come across like ritual artifacts, but you might not be able to complete the ritual if you haven't found that artifact. Now if you've previously found that location, you can go back to it and you know look for an offering or you know something like that. But I liked Fari RPG's design choice to approach it like it was Metroidvania, in that you can miss stuff, and you know if you die you can go back to where it's not just forgotten, it's not a restart, it's there, you have been there.
I like that.
Yeah, it's fun, and I think, like you said, the sudden change in playbooks can really help drive the narrative forward for both. I am going to. I've got Christmas coming up soon, so I'm going to kind of finish my playthrough or like release a part 1 that'll just be free for download, so that people can kind of read the story and see like what it's like to play through a journaling game, because I'm really interested in bringing more people into the hobby through accessible games. I think journaling games are like one of the easiest forms of gaming that you can get into.
Oh, absolutely, because you only need yourself. You don't need a whole group of people. Like it's when you are an adult, it's really hard to like get a bunch of friends together all the time and play games. So I absolutely agree.
Having double playbooks will hopefully simulate for you that feeling of playing with someone else, even though it's still you're still, you know, having these interactions in character with another person.
And you can affect your other character in the world differently too, and so you can have that really fun. Oh yeah, no, I like that a lot, because I recently did an episode about Dead Letter Society with Rory.
Oh, I love
Dead Letter Society is beautiful. I love it. And so it was really interesting though, because part of like kind of the solo play for that game is just not having someone else there, you know, having either the other vampire not responding, things like that, which I think is really interesting and a fun narrative flavor too. But I love the idea of being able to play both sides and having those dual stories and being able
Yeah.
to have that creative liberty of like, okay, what is this character up to and what is this character up to, and like,
Yeah.
even though it's definitely a lot more work, especially with a journaling game where you're like, writing everything down and stuff. um, I just think it's really beautiful to kind of go back and forth because it does give it does give that idea of playing with a group without having to play with a group, which I really love because
Which it's a huge barrier for people.
yeah, for
Yeah, it's a huge
sure.
barrier for people trying to get into games is, schedules and
Hmm.
finding a group.
Or if they
And
even
I
want to
think
play it with you
sometimes
too.
that too. And I think sometimes solo journaling games can feel a little lonely.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I really wanted you to breathe life into the world through having this sort of dual interaction. I mean, you don't have
Hmm.
to. You can just play one book. Um, I kind of wanted to play both because I wanted to kind of build a narrative of two people who are wildly different. I mean, even in their ages, my Dawn Carver is in her 40s, and the Night Weaver is maybe 18. He's not quite
Hmm.
sure. Um, time for me in the way that I've approached my playthrough has stopped,
Hmm.
and like everything is
Oh
in
yeah.
stasis. So she's like, some people believe that age goes backwards, some people believe it still goes forwards.
Hmm.
I don't know anymore. We're just in a stasis. I am this age. I might not be that age tomorrow because there's
Yeah.
no way to track time anymore. The cycles have stopped.
That's
Um,
actually really, I like that a lot. And I like you were mentioning before of like where you can decide whether or not you do want to restore the world and having fun,
mhm.
like interesting things like that of like time has stopped. There could be, I guess, benefits there depending on where it stopped and like how the world is now. But then it's like,
Mhm.
do we want to go back to how it was with the time being normal? Do we want things to be how it used to? Oh, yes, I love it. No, that's so cool. That's really
I mean,
cool.
the other thing to consider here is the secret third player is the wizard,
Oh yeah.
because you get to decide what the wizard's motivations for doing what they did
Hmm.
are, and whether they're repentful or they're evil. Like, you
Hmm.
get to decide what the context for all of that was. So in a way, the wizard is the third playbook.
That's
Um,
so cool. Yeah, no, I like that. Three playbooks. You get to play with three people.
I mean, in a narrative sense, I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
given the wizard any form of identity because I
Yeah.
really want that to be. I want the wizard to manifest however it manifests for the person playing. I know what it's going to be for me.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say though because I'm going to leave that to my playthrough.
Ooh.
Um, but I think it's interesting where you also get to decide the villain's motivations because
Yeah.
a lot of the time that's kind of just left either into the setting or it's a random dice roll. And I've
Hmm.
given you prompts in there, like the wizard did it for this reason, or
Yeah. Do you want to give some of those
this is what they want.
examples? Just because
Yeah,
I'm
I can find
curious.
some.
Because I really
Um,
love hearing prompts and examples in solo games because I think that's a great way to start thinking about some ideas of like, okay, what's the direction I want to go in.
yeah, so it's in either your death or the ending phase of the game.
Hmm.
So if playing collaboratively, consider if the other acolyte can travel to the location of their demise and make a bargain with the wizard. You are free to decide what it is, or you can have a d6 roll below. The wizard
Oh yeah,
wants
yeah.
your heart, your service, your destruction of a holy site, your creation of a holy site erected in the name of the glow, your memories of the world, or your forgiveness.
Yes, I love that. I saw that
Um,
when I was flipping through Afterglow. I'm like, oh, that's really good, especially to give, with the death thing
yes,
specifically and being able to make that bargain because those are some
yeah,
really interesting moments in TTRPG more group games that I've seen where there is sometimes that choice of like you could save your friends, but then there's, the negative side there or like whatever they want from you and how that could impact you. I think is a
yeah.
really, really good like story element that just feeds me. Like it makes me excited. Like that's just a really fun thing to come across. I love it. And then
I
like
mean,
seeing what you roll.
controversially as well, I am also a believer that not every ending has to be a good one.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Like I think sometimes when it comes to group games, it can be really easy to, at the end, you want to be the heroes, you want to be able to fix
Yes.
whatever was going on and all of that. But I seriously love the idea of exploring bad endings within games, but that can be definitely a difficult thing to do with a group if you're not
Yes.
all on the same page of this could end badly, or being open
Yeah.
to that idea as well. So solo games are a really good way to like discover and actually like play around with those ideas in a space where you don't have to worry about like other people's expectations, or not worry about their expectations, but you don't have to worry about like how they're going to enjoy the story, because you're not going
Yeah.
to fail whatever their expectation was, we're going to be heroes by the end. Maybe not. That's why you do have to be clear. Session zeros are great. Talk about
Yes.
your idea for the game, like always,
Yeah.
forever, always important. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
no, I love that too, and that's definitely something I've wanted to explore more within games, is that it doesn't have to end well, because I just love I do love tragedy. That's one thing that I love about 10
Me too.
Candles, is that like you die at
Oh
the
yeah.
end. Doesn't matter how it goes. You are dying at the end. Calamity,
Ten Candles
the
is such a beautiful game. Yeah.
it
I
is a
can't play
gorgeous
that with my
game.
group. Yeah. The group that I play with normally are I love them to death. But they really struggle with pushing the button and
Yeah.
not feeling panic.
Mhm.
And there was a couple of players who were a bit nervy about character death, so I took it off the
Mhm.
table because we're playing a
Yeah.
game and it should be fun.
That's
But what's
one of my
really
players as
interesting,
well.
yeah, and I think like if it helps them feel like they're having more fun at the table, just
Mhm.
take it away. It should
Yeah, there's
it's
nothing wrong
fine.
with it.
You can introduce like tension and risks in other ways.
Yep.
And I think for Afterglow, what I wanted was you get to set that level of tension
Mhm.
because I've not defined it for you. And it's funny because like I feel like I'm sat here having a really in-depth discussion and not knowing if that gets across in the design philosophy. I hope it does.
Mhm.
But with the wizard, you can decide whether or not they're evil,
Yeah.
or if they were just trying to do a good thing, or even if they've been scapegoated
Yeah.
and actually it was X. And the idea that you can die and you can choose to come back, or a devil's bargain, borrowing from blades,
Mhm.
um, is really
Yes.
interesting to me, because I think as humans we want closure with stories, and we
Mhm.
want to feel like the hero, particularly in like fantasy role-playing
Mhm.
games. And that's fun. Is it as interesting for me? No. I get really bored of characters that can always solve problems and are always the hero.
I'm
And
curious
I think,
if that's maybe even a reason why you've connected with Blades too, because you're not supposed to be playing good guys necessarily. Like you're playing like
mm,
people who are committing crimes and like doing things selfishly,
yeah,
and they're not the hero.
yeah. I think when you've played enough of a certain type of story, you want a bit more. And
Mhm.
for me, I like Mork Borg is interesting because it's punishing. It's a
Yeah.
really punishing game. Don't
Oh,
get
it
attached to your
is.
character; they're
No.
probably going to bite it. And like, I lost 3 characters in one session, because we were
There
just
must be a
making stupid
record.
decisions. Well, 2 hit points. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
Die.
exactly. No, it's
Um,
it is so intense. I know that we rolled for like Morkborg characters on the Morkborg episode that we did, and I think I ended
mm,
up getting like high hit points, but it's like that's really rare. Like that's not gonna
they're still under
happen.
a D6, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and even though the math is small, that's still absolutely terrifying when half of your health can go just with one hit, and it's like, oh,
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
in danger.
you can still connect with that character even though you've
Exactly.
only been playing them for half an hour.
Hmm.
Um, I think we mentioned this a little bit before about AP's like Critical Role introducing
Hmm.
the long form narrative, and that not necessarily always translating over to
Hmm.
indie. Um, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. You don't have to have these like heroic overarching narratives. They're fun. I really love my D&D group. We're meeting hopefully soon over Christmas, and I've got all the stuff planned. It's going to be really fun. But smaller games with richer experiences should also not be thrown out, I think.
Yeah,
And a
they shouldn't
lot
be
of
dismissed.
times, yeah, like 10 Candles is a beautiful game that I think a lot of people would feel a bit nervous about playing. Same with Bluebeard's Bride. Absolutely, you need safety tools for that game. You need session zeros to set out expectations. You need them for any game, but particularly games like this.
Anything that starts to get like horror pushing, like it can push boundaries and stuff like that
Yeah.
too. Like, yeah, just even if you know
Solo
each
games are
other, just make
interesting.
sure.
Yeah, but with solo games, you get to decide what those lines are and maybe move them in the comfort of your own space.
Exactly.
I got very deep into my playthrough of the Sealed Library, and was like nothing safety toolish, but it made me think about some things about myself. And I
Yeah.
think people think like solo journaling games, oh, you flip a tarot card and you read a prompt and you write about it. Sure. But you can also craft a story and you can explore your inner world as richly as you can at a table. And I think solo journaling games do not get that kind of credit as often as they should. Dead Letter Society, Rory is such a good designer. I'm really excited for Sanguine Paths. But
same.
Dead Letter Society is really interesting to me. One, because I like grew up reading Anne Rice and I love vampires. But also that idea of you can play with somebody or you can just keep writing letters to someone that is not responding. That's
and
depressing. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, and like exploring that, and even just the idea of it being letters too, and that whole mindset and experience too. Like you are sitting down to write a letter. Like that's sometimes that is different than just because if you're looking at solo games bare bones, it can be you roll a dice, you get a prompt, you write down, that bare bones. If you're not looking at anything else, that's pretty much how a lot of them function. But like kind of that then bringing it into a different perspective of you are someone sitting down to write a letter to maybe a friend or a loved one or maybe to someone new. Like there can be so many different options, and just like the thought process of and going between the journaling and writing the letter too, because how you handle your journaling is going to be completely different than sitting down to write the letter. And I just think it's really beautiful how different it is and how much you can go back and forth, and the different experiences of like what you're giving the person too, because like you can do real letters and play with another person and give them the letter, and they have to not have to, but like they respond back, and it's based off of that letter.
What I want to do with my friends when we play it. But even solo, like I had a character sort of ready to go, and then convention prep got in the way. But I like made a promise to myself that I would sit down and write a letter and put it in an envelope and seal it.
Yeah.
As part of the experience of writing a letter, I'm gamifying the physical action of writing a letter, and then I would keep them in piles. I even, because I have no chill, was like, oh, I'll get stamps and stuff as well. It'll be really sick. Like I will make some little like skull stamps on my envelopes.
Absolutely.
I'm so busy and I come up with stuff like this, and
but that's why you make it your job so that you can do it full time. Like no, I would love, like I've missed playing in-person games so much because I love the physical element of it. I love the idea of making props and having those letters and being able to do, again, that's why I do love taking notes. I have a physical version of the game right there, even as I do the improv like GMing for my Monster of the Week game, and I'm probably I'm not the only person. I'm one of the 2 people in the group that actually takes notes during the game. Part of it is to remember what I say and make sure I'm keeping things consistent, especially with like mysteries and stuff. But it's just, I can now look back, I don't know, years later and see everything that happened during the game and my thought process and all the different small things as well, which I think is really beautiful. And what I love about the idea of like playing solo and actually like sealing the letters away is maybe you never open them for years, and maybe you could open them sometime and it's like, I remember doing this, and like it's going to be such a cool experience to like, I think that's so cool.
It's
I love
like
it.
arty. It's really arty, and I kind of love that. And I love the record of creativity that goes into solo games.
Same.
And it is so easy to brush it off as like, well, I can just write a story. Like, yes, you can, but you are robbing yourself of the engine of that experience. And you know, have I been a bit loosey goosey with Afterglow in places? Yes, it is on purpose. I think that is very much, it seems to be so far my approach to game design, because narrative is more important than rules for me. And Fari's systems work for me because they are elegantly simple.
Yes.
And you can kind of build on them. But with Afterglow, you know, it'd be really cool at the end to show people the map that I'm drawing, and to have that. And like, I think I've said I'm going to make it available as a zine that you can download. Read the story.
I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, it'll be good. I'm excited. I said I wasn't going to do any work over Christmas, and then I'm like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Oops. Anyone who knows me, I'm so busy all of the time, and I keep going, but wait, this thing, and it frustrates Logan to no end. But you know, you have to. We're storytellers, aren't we? Ultimately, that's why we get into this hobby. No matter the direction from which we come in, games are really beautiful, and the engines with which you can experience different angles of storytelling is really interesting to me. Dead Letter Society, you're a vampire. In Afterglow, you're an acolyte of a sun or a night god, you know. In the breathing, you have to discover a piece of knowledge. I've left that up to you to decide what that is. That could be like, did you know mice actually have 3 feet? Yes. You have won your way out of the archive. Like, you know. Ducks.
I love that. Ducks.
But yeah, I love game design. I love this hobby. And I love how passionately creative people are about it. And I think the more that you play, the better you become, not only as a person who is approaching it as like a hobby, or even like in my case as a job, but just as a person. The richness of that experience, your inner world can be just as interesting as the group outer world. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes.
I agree. I think the out of world, out of game experience, at least for me, is something that's something that's really connected with me a lot. Is because like there's been a pretty large section, you know, but like with COVID happening and stuff like that, I used to play pretty regularly in person games. COVID hit, I moved, all of these things. I've been in an online D&D game since then, and so I've been able to play, but not to the extent and not as much as I would like. And so for me, getting into TTRPGs, what that kind of did for me is I loved reading the books. I loved thinking about the mechanics and thinking about the stories, and that I could tell, and how to use these mechanics in the games. And that's what's really just sparked so much of the passion, at least for TTRPGs for me, is all of that out of game stuff. I love doing session zeros. Those are some of my favorite times in a game, especially when it's a collaborative, like planning out the world together too. Like I have very fond memories of sitting in Discord calls with my brother trying to plan out our Monster of the Week world, and finding this just really small town in like northern Washington state called Maple Falls, and it's like, this would be perfect for our Monster of the Week game.
Oh, I love that.
And it's set there because like it's like, oh, absolutely. And so we're like, oh, it could be this and this and this. And so like those out of session, out of play times are definitely some of my favorite. And sometimes I feel like I'm a bit of a black sheep with that, because so many people are like, I love playing these games, and it's like, I love playing them as well, but some of my favorite stuff comes from just thinking about them out of session, and
for sure,
reading the books and just like getting really into it. And even though I'm not playing and I wish to play more, I swear I want to run 10 Candles game. That's like one on my list that's like super high. It's like I just want the perfect scenario for that. Like, let's get super dark room, tea light candles, perfect group, let's get into it. But I just love what you said there. Like, I think that is underappreciated, because I think that's a really important element, especially for GMs, because there's a lot more thought that GMs have to put between sessions than players do. And I know that I know that my my brother thinks a lot in between sessions of like, especially if it ends on a cliffhanger and we're like having this big conversation next week or whatever, like he'll think a lot
Yeah.
between sessions. And I know that my players do think about the games between sessions, but it's a different level of thinking because I have to think
Yeah.
about the game. I have to think about, you know, how is it going to, well, what am I going to set up for them? What opportunities are going to be happening, and all of these things, like, and also looking at the rules and how those are going to be. I just love it. I don't know, that's something I
Oh no, it's
definitely love
great.
as a GM. It's very
It's
fun for
great.
me to just get into it.
I'm really excited because the current D&D world that I've played with my friends for 3 years, which I had kind of made, and then they've like built with me as we've gone, that is kind of reaching like the 3/4 point. And I turned around to them in the summer and I said, right, look, do you want to keep playing? And they said yes. I said, okay, do you want to keep playing in the same world? And they were like, yes. So what's really exciting for me is probably late next year, maybe early 2025, we will look at brand new characters, a session 0, and what the world looks like 10, 20, 30
Ooh,
years into the future,
I love
where
that.
their old characters will be NPCs in the world and will have affected it. I mean, yeah, they want to play D&D again, totally fine. But we're also going to be playing like other stuff
Yeah,
as well, like Court of Blades and things like that. If it works for your group, it works. But what's really exciting to me is they get to reap the rewards of a 3-year-long narrative campaign that they have contributed to
that's beautiful.
with me. Yeah, and then they get to bridge it and build more in a world that they're already really heavily invested in. I think that's really beautiful. I just love games, man. I could talk about
Yeah,
games
the
for
same.
hours.
No, this is so
um,
great. No, I like, these are the kinds of conversations I love. Like, I love talking about the actual games, but it's also all the other things in between that I just adore. And
yeah, yeah,
it's also interesting as well when you were mentioning like the long-term like narrative play, you know, year-long sessions. It's interesting because I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and I kind of came to the conclusion I don't know if that kind of play is for me, because I
yeah,
am so, and I think that's another thing when it comes to play style, that those are things that you have to think about. Are you someone who wants to go for the long haul, you know, 3-year long campaign, building this world
absolutely.
and staying committed? Or are you someone who wants to jump around and play different things and like
Hmm.
experience all these different stories? Because for me, especially with getting into TTR, like all these TTRPGs, I can't help but want to bounce around from a bunch of these different games and just see what it's like to play them and see what kind of stories we can create and see like what do they have to offer. And for
Yeah.
me it almost feels like when I was running my my first D&D game, we ended up not actually like finishing it. I had to kill it before we could finish it because it had
Oh no.
some problems and all kinds of stuff, and so it's like that hurts,
Yeah.
but it's for the better. And one of the things that kind of helped me come to that decision is we
Yeah.
were about a year into the game and I just felt stuck in it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I love the world and I love the characters, but it's not like, it's not entertaining my brain enough. Like, I need something new to be doing, and
Mm.
I want to try out new ideas, and I'm kind of stuck with the truths of the world and stuff that I already established a year ago. And for me
Yeah.
that was interesting when, you know, most of the examples that I see of people playing games is like, oh, I finished this 7-year long campaign, or, you know, Critical Role where they're playing for several years of different campaigns and in the same world and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I that was a very interesting discovery for me because it's like I need to play my games differently to keep me happy playing them, you know, for my
Absolutely.
style.
There's
Yeah.
such a huge pressure, I think,
Hmm.
for, and I think this is where maybe a bit of the tension kind of comes from between play styles, because I
Hmm.
love the long form stuff with the
Hmm.
right group.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, it has to be
and
the
I
right
think it
group
helps
too.
that it has to be the right group, and I think it helps that these are friends. So basically, the group formed because we were in a D&D game together, and it came
Hmm.
crashing down to the point like where the DM had been really irresponsible in their role. I'll put it like
Hmm.
that. And so they were devastated, and I was
Hmm.
like, I will pick up the torch. And we've been playing ever since. And the trust that they have in me now after doing that after 3 years, kind of undoing all the bad work that kind of came before. So we love the long form game, and I love like getting crunchy and world building. I think that's where a lot of the creativity is. But what I've also found since playing a lot of indie games is that the richness of the smaller experiences are also important.
I swear, we just need to like talk about games, because we're like it is so hard to like get back on track when it's like I want to talk about this so bad.
Yes,
no,
I will come on whenever you like to talk about games and throw recommendations at you, because
this
it's the whole bag.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. So I think it's interesting because for me, I've had, again, with a lot of thought, especially with that D&D game and kind of closing that out, that made me think a lot about, my play style and all these elements of TTRPGs I enjoy. And I found like I love world building, and I love like the act of like doing it with your players and stuff.
Yes.
But then I found that like when it comes to games that have like super set up lore, that's like when it is like that, it boxes you in and it's like pages and pages and pages of lore, I struggle with that. And I think that comes from not being a super big fiction reader, and that's like when it starts getting into a story, and so that's kind of hard for me to get into in general. But also I need those elements that I can do my own things, and I feel like when it's so set in stone, it is such a hard time, even though like the lore and the world building I think is so fun. I love the world building that I've done in my Monster of the Week game, and I love the very small lore that I did because it's like I don't want to set too much in stone, because I want to see what happens in the game. I've changed several things based off of my players' theories. Like that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah. I honestly, some of the big campaign reveals, they think that I had planned, and I was like, no, you made a suggestion, and I fucking ran 1,000 miles with it. It's great. I mean, like, I will never tell my players what it was. Like, if any of you are listening or watching, you will never know. I will never tell you. Because it's like a magician doesn't reveal their tricks, right?
Exactly.
Like, if I tell you how that works, it's not fun anymore.
That's what I love about GMing, is that it's like, I do all of these things behind the scenes, and I'm not gonna say anything because I want you to just enjoy it as it is. Like, we are playing this story. Don't worry about whether or not it was planned or if it was improv in the moment. It doesn't matter. You had fun. I just get to have fun with it.
Indie solo games, you're technically not the GM, so that control is away from you. So while you think that you're sat at the steering wheel, no, that's the dice, that's the cards. Like, you are reacting to what is being told to you by the prompts or the dice or whatever, if that's the way that you're setting it up. Yeah.
No, that's actually a really good point. I mean, it's the same idea of like the GM emulators too, where you can play these games that aren't meant for solo play, but you just have a system that just plays that role instead. But like solo games, they kind of it's all an illusion. It all comes down to illusion. It feels like you are in control, but you're really not, which is where it can be. I especially do have fun with it as a GM, because it is a fun way to not have that thinky brain going, where you're having to think about all of the different elements and what opportunities would be the best to set up. You are just relinquishing that, and I think that's a good point. I never thought about that specifically.
No, it's the engine, right? It's the engine of the rule set, and so you can take your focus away from that and put it into the creativity of your response. Which is why when people say, oh, I can just write something, I don't need to play a solo game. But you should, though, because the experience is really unique.
It's
but you
different.
should, though. And it took me a little while to get my head around it. The sealed library, I said before, was the penny drop moment for me, where I was like, I think also Babel, which is similar to the sealed library. I kind of went down a similar games kind of, if you like this, play this. And I think with games like Afterglow, where I've not specified stuff in stone, you get some of that control back. But these cards are brutal, man. I had an idea for how I wanted my playthrough to go, and it has not gone that way, and that's fine. And as a GM or a DM, you will prep something that your players will ruin.
Yep.
It's happened to me a number of times.
And it's
that's
beautiful.
okay.
Yeah, no,
It's
it's great.
beautiful.
Because
It's the
then
part of playing the game, because otherwise just read a book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that, we are playing these games for a reason. I
Mhm.
don't want to set up every single story beat and have it be that exact way, and that's something that I've messed up a few times, even in my own games. I can admit that I've accidentally done that because it's like because it is a much different form of storytelling. Like you need
It is.
to keep your mind open to these things can change, and depending on the mechanics too and how they work. Like in my Monster of the Week game, I needed to kind of refresh myself on how some of the like countdown stuff works and how to really implement that in the game, because I was being a little too like hard with it, where it was like this thing would happen instead of leaving it like, oh, as an opportunity. And I'm like, oh wait, I did that wrong. Because then in the story it was like, oh wait, I wish we had an opportunity to change this. And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Yeah, let me refresh on this and make sure that like I'm doing it right, because I want to give those opportunities for the players to affect the story. Because then why are they playing if they don't get to have that? Man, this is so fun.
I will just spew like game philosophy. It's fun. It's fun. I don't know. I love the different approaches people have to stories. I think that I find that very interesting.
Yeah, same.
Like what you were saying before, that you don't read fiction, you read nonfiction, and so the fun for you is the setting and the like a soft read, right? And then the mechanics. So interesting to me. But like immediately I'm like, so somebody out there could write a setting book that another person would find enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's the approach is so different. And I think it's really cool. I love it. I love that how different we all are, and that coming together around a table or even sitting down in front of a solo book with yourself, you can learn a lot. I learned a lot about my approach to storytelling through playing solo games. Definitely.
Yeah. Honestly, I want to play more, because that's something that I've been, because I don't have all these opportunities to play as much as I'd like, and so I do want to try and find ways to learn more, because like I know definitely I don't have as much experience in games as a lot of people I've talked to, and and obviously that doesn't necessarily mean that like good or bad or anything like that, but it's something that
exciting.
Yeah, because it's again different perspectives. I have my experiences with mostly playing D&D. I've been playing Monster of the Week for about a year, and I'm still learning. I've been GMing for almost 2 years at this point.
Hey.
I think we're getting to almost 2 years, and there's still so many things that I'm learning. There's still so many things. Like one of my favorite things about doing these calls, especially when it comes to people who are also GMs, is I learn so much from this. Like just people talking about the way that they run their games, and the way that they even them talking about games that they love and what they love about it. I learn from it, and I get ideas and inspiration, because it's just a really good way to expand my mind without having to play and things like that. And so I get different takes and ideas, and I get to talk to them too, and that's just really cool. I love it. So this is great. I love this.
It's been really fun. It's been really fun.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm trying to think. This may just end up being a bit more of an interview episode with like a
fine
with like a feature of Afterglow and stuff, because sometimes these episodes do go a bit off topic, and I usually am able to bring them back in, and I know that I've been able to bring this back in several times, but I think I'm for me for me, I think that there can be some space for people that just talk about games in just a casual like chat, like let's just chat about a game and not have it be a whole interview thing or anything like that, because I feel like that can kind of limit you sometimes. And so I want to talk about games. Like tell me about your favorite ones and how you think that it's affected your play in this way, and like what how did you get into role-playing games, and your different perspectives, I think that's just really fun to me. I love it. It's so fun. I love doing this.
Well, I noticed before when I'd said, that about engines being the GM, and you kind of sat back in the chair like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. I got you.
Yeah, no,
Because like
and that's the best part. Yes.
yeah, it took me ages to realize that. I was like,
Mhm.
wait. The dice of the GM, actually.
It's like mind blown. Shh, you got a good point.
It
And
doesn't sound that profound, but
yeah.
like once you sit down and you experience that,
Mhm.
then you understand what I'm saying, like giving up
Yeah.
the control.
And for me, a realization more recent than I would like to admit is the fact that systems are literally just tools for your
Yeah.
game. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't, like, you don't have to use all of them. They are just all tools to help support the story that you're trying to tell. And
Yep.
so, like, that's pretty simple, like a simple idea, simple concept of how it works. But like, it was recently where it's like really clicked in my head of like, oh, like these are what the rules are, and the mechanics are just tools to help support your story, and that's why you can
Yep.
disregard the ones that you don't want to use and use the ones that you do. Like, they are just a tool. And so, I
Yeah.
mean,
I remember picking up, I think it was either the Player's Handbook or the Dungeon Master's Guide for 5th edition. And like literally on the first page, it's like, you can ignore all of these rules.
yeah.
People on the internet will be very mad, but you can ignore all of these rules. And yeah, I think like it is a tool.
Mhm.
I didn't really in Afterglow specify when a threat would occur.
Mhm.
You get to decide, like, because you're rolling what that consequence is.
Yeah, I was curious when I was actually flipping through when threats would occur, because that's something that, like,
Yeah,
when
you
I
tell
was
me
just,
because
yeah, because I was
yeah,
like, yeah, when would a threat occur? Because there's nothing that says specific, like, hey, this is when you would generate a threat, or they're in these specific areas or anything like that. And so that
yeah,
was actually something that I was going to ask you, and that, I mean, you just answered it right there. It's up to you, and that's where, sometimes some of the
yeah.
more free form games can be a struggle for people when it's like, I don't know how to interpret them, but that's just a different, sometimes it comes to experience, and sometimes that's not how you like to experience your storytelling either. Sometimes you need a little bit more structure, sometimes you want it to be looser, and either way is perfectly fine.
I think people have different approaches to like, do you even want to fight the threats? Because you don't have
Hmm.
to. I think I've written something like a consequence can occur, and you can
Hmm.
decide that a consequence of that is a threat spawns,
Yeah.
and you can instead have a consequence be, an event from the roll table. Totally up
Hmm.
to you. When does death occur for your character? Well, I would argue when you are massively outnumbered and overstacked,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have to be. And I could probably do with releasing like a little A5 thing to just say, by the way, guys, you get to decide what
Yeah.
this is. Um, it's funny because Afterglow was such a long project.
Hmm.
Even though it's not a very big game, it was one of those things that I started, and then UKGE happened, and then I had like all these other projects, and I had
Hmm.
some like really like personal stuff go down the shit.
Hmm.
So I was like, it got to October, and I was like, oh shit. Guess I should finish the game. Because originally as well, Logan and I had kind of designed. I have it on my notice board actually. I will just pluck it off. So Logan came up with this really cool print concept that we just,
Hmm.
because we hand make everything,
Hmm.
I knew that when it came to making it was going to be a nightmare, and I kind of just wanted to get the game out. But we had this idea of a folding book where you would
Ooh,
have the playbooks. But when we
that's
tested it in the
beautiful.
print
Yeah.
studio, it just didn't work the way that I wanted, which was so
Hmm.
disappointing.
Oh, that would
Um,
have been so fun.
it would have been so beautiful, right? Because this is the interesting thing about Fistful of Ink in the TTRPG space is like we hand make everything. Tobeans
Hmm.
is a custom size.
Hmm.
The box is a custom size, and so we're our ceiling for creativity and what we can do is really experimental and interesting.
Yeah.
But also, we are just two people and a dog in a studio, and the dog doesn't help at all. So it's just us, and so we come up with these really cool ideas.
Hmm.
I mean, what we produced is still really beautiful.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
this would have been really cool, but also if it doesn't work, that's fine.
Hmm.
We could maybe try this again. Logan was talking about stacking 3 editions of Tobeans like this.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I was like, cool, that we can do a bit easier
Hmm.
when the time comes. But with Afterglow being such a long project, I kind of wanted to put a line under it, so that I can start next year kind of afresh. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of like the work that I put in and how it helped me grow as a game designer. Every game will do that for you. I'm really excited to see people play it, hopefully, and enjoy it and see how people get on with it. And then onwards and upwards to another game, I think. I've got Hark, which is going to be a Morkborg setting and mini adventure.
Ooh,
where
that's exciting.
an angel is eating a town, because that's very Morkborg.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's going to be pastel aesthetics, which is going to piss a lot of people off on the Morkborg Reddit, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, do it.
Yeah, so 3 parts: Hark, the Herald, and the Angel Sings. And I want to release that as like a book for next Christmas.
That's exciting.
Cool. And then Tobine's part 3 that I'm working with a friend on, hopefully. And then Tobine's Indie, which we might try and kickstart, but kickstarting is very scary.
Oh, for sure.
Scary. And then just more indie games, whatever I can make. My problem is I come up with too many ideas of little things that I want to do.
Not enough time.
Not enough time, because you've got to wear all the business hats.
Business hats. I feel that there's been so many times where it's like, ooh, this would be a really fun and cool idea. Then I'm like, I already need to actually focus on the stuff that I've already started and act and want to do, and not get distracted with all of
creation is a process. I
would be so happy. And also, like, I have to also take care of my own self and not burning myself out, because I'm someone very prone to burnout, and it's
me too. Late stage capitalism, yay!
Woo, so fun. Not crying, it's fine. No, but I feel that. I'm so excited though to like see all these things. And if there's ever a time where you just want to like bounce ideas, like just let me know, because I am so down for, because that's something I love doing about this as well. As sorry, hit the microphone. Is the fact that this can sometimes be like a workshop. I had like Rich from Hatchling Games on here, and he was like asking me some questions about Rich. Some of the, he's great. He's absolutely fantastic. And we got to talk about Cryptid Creeks, which is such a cute game. I'm so excited to actually get the book of it.
Wait.
So good.
Rich is one of those people in the community that is like a pillar. So lovely, so welcoming, and doing really important work in the space as well for getting kids into gaming, accessible gaming as well, which is so important. Cryptid Creeks looks so good. It's like Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls.
It's so your vibe.
Goonies, like all of that. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason I kind of went towards it. When I kept seeing the advertisement stuff for it, I'm like, yep, I know that. I know my next new game that I will be getting. I mean, that's why I love. I think Basin also. Maybe there's a theme of some games.
I think so.
Like,
I'm detecting a theme.
But. I mean, I enjoy those types of stories though, and it's interesting to see the ways that different people interpret them and create their own game about them, because Vasin's very different than Monster of the Week. Vasin is so extremely dangerous. Like, it's that free league, it's that free league of you don't want to get into an actual combat with someone because you are going to get destroyed. like they are going to kill you.
It's I've not seen a lot about Vasin. It's only really come onto my radar recently, because I think this might not be Vasin, but I remember a Vasin-esque game came out to a lot of controversy. It might have been Vasin. I don't remember. No one quote me. And so it kind of fell off my radar. It's come back on my radar, and I've gone, oh, that's really interesting. It's like Brian Froud-esque fairy Scandinavian.
Yeah, it's like kind of fairy tale, like like folklore,
which is interesting. Yeah, but it's funny because I don't like modern settings in games. I will play them. I played Cyborg recently. Had a really good time there. I robbed a factory for guns wearing a cow udder apron. Yeah. But Vasin is interesting because it's got that sort of like Dark Souls, like Morkborg, I guess, difficulty setting, in that you don't want to be in this fight. Good luck, sort of thing. So yeah, it's hard to get hold of at the moment. I think there's been like a boom or maybe something.
I know that they had like free PDF copies over Halloween at like this year, but then this is gonna this is coming out in 2024, so last year, I guess. I don't know. It came out. They had like free. They had some like PDF copies. I've been seen as like I've been in like play an RPG other than D&D. I've seen a lot of people recommend Vaesen as a game. So maybe it has had a boom. I haven't seen it specifically, but I think Free League in general has been just getting a lot of booms with their games and kind of what's been happening. Because I mean, I just adore their stuff. I've only played Dragonbane is the only Free League game that I've actually been able to play, which is like it's actually an old school Swedish game that they got the license to, and then they redid not using their Year Zero engine, but doing a roll under D20 system, which I just love. I love roll under D20 systems. It makes me happy when I roll a 1 and it's a success. But like that's really good. Again, it's like that brutal kind of darker fantasy. It's kind of like you could say it's almost like D&D, but it's darker, more brutal, gritty fantasy where again it's dangerous to get into combat. I played it with Dork Day Afternoon on their stream, and we fought a minotaur, and it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. One of the characters died. We were all very close. I ended up getting like a huge scar on my face. The one guy got broken ribs and all of these things. It was brutal. But it was like such a fun game. And then like they have technically they published Morkborg, or at least they have Morkborg on their website. They have Into the Odd on their website as well. That's not one that they, I think, specifically published, but that's also fantastic. Another roll under D20
need to
system.
pick up a copy of that.
I haven't played it, but I love Into the Odd, and I love Electric Bastionland, which is like kind of the supplement for it. It's so goofy, and it's also again it's that more gritty. It's difficult. Like it's so easy because again you only have like 6 hit points. You're gonna like instantly get demolished if you get hit. Like there's just a beauty in some of the more gritty games that I really appreciate. But Vaesen's one that's been on the top of my list for a while because it's like industrial age Scandinavia, like these Vaesen. I mean, they're called Vaesen, I believe, in I don't know if it's like specifically Swedish, but like that's kind of their folk creatures. Like they're called Vaesen, and so like you're dealing with these folk creatures that are kind of like starting to disturb people, especially because you're disturbing their land and kind of their like how it's worked in the world for all this time. And so like there's just a lot of really interesting elements, and it's kind of that it's not conspiracy, but it's like dark secrets, and you get to have like a castle that you have as your headquarters, and it's just really cool.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, I know. And actually, as you play throughout the game, you can upgrade it. So like you could get like an observatory, or I think that's one of the things. But you can like get different things within like your base, and it's just really really cool. I love it. And like the whole thing is that you have the sight too. Like you can actually see them, but not everyone can see the Vaesen. And so like you have like this. It's like called like Tuesday. Oh God, what's the site called? It's been a minute since I've actually like read it. But it's called something specific, and only people with that site can actually see the Vaesen. And so it's just really interesting. It's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. It's one of my favorites to flip through.
With Troika, because if you like whimsy, and like weird little guys, Troika is gonna be up your street.
I always thought it was Troika. Is that?
Oh God, probably.
Maybe.
TROKIA? TROIKA?
IKA? Yeah, Troika? I don't know. That's one that I've had on my radar though. I actually
oh my God.
I think I
get it.
I may have a PDF version of the game. I need to actually look into it because that's one that I've seen. It's like just it's insane. And I am all
just a book of weird little guys.
Yeah.
And like Wow. I think you would have fun with that because it's a setting that like is crazy. And the playbooks are also a bit mental and weird, but like you're not tied into anything.
Mhm.
It's literally acid death fantasy, so you can do whatever you want, really.
Yeah, I love it.
So I think if you like games about weird little guys,
And they
that's
have
your
like
book.
the supplement of like is it fungi of like the far realms or something like that is
Yes.
one of theirs. I love mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. So like that makes me just really excited too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's one I need to look more into. My play group right now isn't built for the type of insane games that I would like to run.
No, me too.
so
Yeah. I know.
so I hope to find some people to run some of these games with because I want to play Land of Eam and play these goofy little guys going on their little quests where like
Yeah, that sounds so cute.
it's got like this whole section of it's actually got a separate okay there's like three books. Yeah, there's 3 books. There's the core book that, gives all the player information of like how to build characters and all the character options, the rules, and then like it gets into like crafting and then like some of the GM stuff too. Then it's got
Okay.
a whole campaign setting that is pretty much
Ooh.
just here's locations and here's some NPCs and places in these cities and towns and stuff, but it's like really simple where it's like here's an NPC, here's some like basically descriptive stuff about them, and
Yeah.
maybe here's like a quest that they have along with them or
That's
or
my favorite
something.
because you can just
Yeah,
take it and build on it.
exactly. And so I
Yeah.
can make that NPC whatever I want, and then I can add my own details and maybe they decide to go further in the game with them. I don't know. Like there can be so much like I love that you can just build so much on it and it's like so
Yeah.
focused on like these quests and stuff. And then they have a third book that is just a book of random encounters and it
Beautiful.
is
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful because it's like for all these different places and it's anything from like a discovery to like you actually encounter something that's kind of dangerous to something that's really dangerous. And sometimes
yeah.
the really dangerous things is you come across a sign that says don't come any further, and then past that's like maybe an evil witch, but like it doesn't say that you go all the way through. You have the choice. It says don't come any closer. Okay, players, this is what you find. What do? Do you decide to keep on
Yeah.
going? Okay, then you're going to have to encounter the terrible witch if you decide to
It's
push.
almost like it was telegraphed to you that that was
Exactly.
dangerous.
Exactly. But I love that it's stuff like that and not just you get into this encounter. Like it kind of
Yeah,
provides a little bit more to it. And that actually really got me excited around the ideas of random encounters in games. Because it's not
yeah.
something that ever really connected to me super strongly. Because I just thought they were, oh, you roll some dice and you decide that, oh, you encounter a hag because that's just what the
Because
dice said.
I don't use it in my games. All of my
Yeah.
encounters are structured and purposeful because I'm like, if it's just to chew the party's hit points down
Mm-hmm.
or their abilities or whatever, why?
Or combat just to have combat when
Yeah,
like
no.
at least for the style of gaming that I enjoy, that's not
Yes,
something
yes.
that because again, it always comes down to personal preference, but
Some
definitely for
people
me,
want to fight 1d6 sheep,
yeah,
and that's okay.
1d6
But
sheep.
you do you. But yeah,
No,
I
I
think
agree.
also it depends on the system, right? Like,
Hmm.
I feel like random encounters in a game like Mouse Ritter would be quite fun.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but not in for me, not in the like the bigger long form stuff.
Yeah,
Like that
because
should be
then
purposeful.
yeah, if especially if it's long form, you're telling a much bigger story, and then you sprinkle in random encounters between it. It can
Yeah.
especially it can get off topic because a random encounter can become its own story too, and that's what I realized when I was like
Hmm.
going through Land of Eam. I'm like, wait a minute, these are like in like this could be an intro to then a much larger story. You could come across some camp that maybe is a camp
Yeah.
for a bunch of cultists, and then maybe you find out more information and like you go to this town and they're like, oh yeah, we're dealing with like there seems to be this like weird cult that's starting to rise. I don't know, they're like messing around in this cave, and then maybe you want to investigate that further, and then you find out maybe they're trying to summon something terrible, and like
Yeah. It's
it could build upon
1d6
itself.
sheep will really throw the vibe.
Yeah. What D6 should really throw the vibe. I love that. No, but
I
it's
did it.
true.
I did it with my group, where one of them had sort of said they wanted to fight an archfey, so I was like, okay, random archfey.
Yeah.
And then realized that was quite disruptive to what we were doing, and I had no idea. So then I had to like tie it in somewhere, and it ended up being for the good. But that's not an archfey is not a random encounter to throw at your players. Stick with the sheep. But yeah,
stick with the sheep.
Stick with the sheep and the ducks, and you'll be fine.
I love stick with the sheep and the ducks. This is so good. Yeah, actually, we're just gonna play a game where you are just set on a farm, and everything's just gonna revolve around farm animals and, you know, poultry and all of these things, and you're gonna have to deal with it. Yeah, all right, 3 turkeys, figure it out. I don't know.
You laugh, but there is a shop in Cardiff called Tabletop Emporium who've just stocked a game called like Non-Violent Animals or something like that, and it's like an Animal Crossing grimdark throw-off.
Yes,
and
I
was
need
like, that sounds quite interesting.
I am laughing, but also, yeah, it is like, that would be fun. What if it was just set on this really large farm? What if it was several farms? Hey, let's have a game of rival farms and figure out what happens.
PBEG is one giant chicken, caca.
Exactly.
You know, it's not actually chicken; it's a giant raven. Ta-da!
Yeah. Woo! Actually, it was disguising itself so that it could infiltrate the farm.
You see, improv skills.
Exactly.
You can do it.
No, now I want to play a game. Now I want to play a farm game. Yeah, give me that Stardew Valley, but like rival farms. Yeah. Okay. Idea for next game.
I will pencil it onto my schedule.
Yeah.
maybe late 2025. We'll see.
Late 2025. No, that's what I love about this too. No, that's so fair. I think so far like two or three games have been kind of designed on this show. I did an episode with Grant from Game Master Monday, and we literally basically made up a game about being a fly, and you only live for like 24 hours and you have to face your own mortality. Well, we didn't actually like make the game. We basically theorized about the game and was like, someone make it, please.
One of my favorite like one page RPGs that I was like, there's no way that anyone would play this except me, is you are a flock of really angry seagulls.
Yes. Yes.
I think it is Grant Howard. I would have to check. I think it is. He makes games like that all the time.
Oh, for sure.
And one of the actions is to like yell at a chip, and I was like, where has this game been all my life? Yes, please.
I need to play that. No, I love, because
another thing I will be linking to you. I mean, I live in a seaside town, so we get seagulls, and I love. They do this stupid little dance every time it's rained, where they're like, because they want to bring the worms up, but they're just like, and then they'll nick stuff out of your bin. Seagulls are prime bird. Like, I love. They're angry all the time.
They are, and then it's so fun to watch them on the beach when it's like people are like. I've watched a seagull steal a fry from someone who was just sitting right there, and then just go on with their day. Like, it's like, okay, this is normal. This is my food now. Thank you. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. No, you don't take food onto the beach because that's the seagull's food now.
Yeah, no, they will chase you. It's. I mean, like. Any game that involves birds is going to be a good time because birds are the most chaotic beings in existence, and I appreciate that about them. I once was threatened by I believe it was a swan. Or no, it was a goose.
Ooh.
It was a goose. It was a very large goose.
They have teeth. Why do they have teeth?
Why do they have teeth? Why are they so big? Why are they just like let free? Like, these are predators. Like, it is.
My boss at my part-time job has a ton of geese, and he will leave work early because he's like, I got to go put the geese to bed. I'm not joking. And he came in the
I've had chickens and ducks. Like, that's what we do. Yeah.
But he came into a meeting the other day and was walking, and I was like, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, Sophie bit me. I was like, what? Who's Sophie? And he went, oh, one of my geese. I was like, oh, okay, that's totally normal.
At least if you get bitten by a duck, it's like, oh, you're cute. But like,
no, geese will leave damage. Like,
yeah. They will mess you up.
We have veered into a weird track here. I'm sorry, but
No,
like,
you are good.
It's been so fun to talk, though.
No, it has, and I think this. I mean, yeah, let's wrap it up here. I mean, yeah, we didn't talk about Afterglow probably as much as we usually talk about other games on this show.
Oh, look, it's fine. If that's
But
the anchor to have a discussion about games, I'm more than
exactly.
happy with that.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I just want to say, hey guys, you should totally check out Afterglow and all of that, and actually, like, you know, look at the game and read it yourself, because we talked about a bunch of aspects of it, and you know, solo journaling in general. And if any of that really connected with you, please check out the game, because I think that's something I love about doing these, is when you get someone who's super excited about a certain style game or a game that they're, you know, talking about that they love, is that you get to hear what they're excited about that. And if you connect with that, check out that game, because that means you probably have a similar play style or enjoy the same types of stories, and it's a great way to start experiencing some other games without being scared of what to try. So if any of this connected,
what I will say, if you've never played a journaling game before and you want to, hit me up. Come into my DMs sensibly, nicely, and I will provide you with a copy, because as much as, you know, I do this for business and money reasons, I also do it for passion, and I want more people to come over into the hobby. And if I can facilitate, you know, a free copy of the game to somebody, I will do that.
I love it.
Yeah, I need to put some community copies up as well. But if any of our games that aren't like in a big system like D&D that interest you, and you want to like either review it or play it, and you've never played that type of game before, hit me up.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't cost me anything to give out a free copy, or
and you get to check it out.
Recommendations, you know.
Exactly.
I'm full of them.
Yeah, as you can see from this episode. No, absolutely. No, I think that's very generous of you. And where can people, what would be the best places for people to contact you for that, and even just ask you questions, ask you about the game, anything like that? And obviously any of these links or any of that will be in the description of this episode as well, for ease of checking out the game and contacting Steph as well.
I am chronically online, so you can probably find me shit posting on Twitter while it floats still. I'm also over on Threads and Instagram, but we also have a website, obviously, that we sell all of our stuff on. I would say if you're picking up a digital copy of the game, we have them on itch.io, but if you buy it from our website, then we get the full amount. We don't have to deal with like American tax and stuff, which like do. So we have a store contact form. If you don't have any of those socials, you can just hit me up and say, you know, I heard you on Willow's podcast, and I'll talk to you over email.
Yeah.
I'm super approachable. I will chat to anybody. And if I don't respond, poke me. Fistful also has a Discord server. It is really small and cozy. It is mostly people dropping cat pics and organizing games, but if anyone wants a link, I'm more than happy to provide that as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and all of that, you know, the link to the website and social medias will all be in the description again of this episode, along with a direct link to Afterglow as well, just again for ease of all of this. But no, this was seriously awesome, and if you guys enjoyed this conversation, let me know, and maybe we could record some more stuff like this, because this is really fun, like just to get all of the stuff out.
I literally, if you want me to just sit here for 3 hours and talk like game theory or recommendations, like I will do that. Like I am unhinged. People are like, have you played this game? I'm like, yes. And also, have you played this game?
Yeah, counteract. Like, all right, yeah, you bring something to me, I'll bring something to you.
If you want me on again, to throw some recommendations or talk through some systems that I really love, I'm more than happy, because yeah, this has been really fun.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I would love that. So we will definitely talk about that, but I think that we will probably wrap it up here. So thank you so much, Steph, for coming on and talking about Afterglow and TTRPGs and Blades in the Dark and world building and solo journaling games and all of these fun things with me, because this was
sheep.
Yeah. Oh, and 1d6 sheep. And ducks. With me, because this was just all fantastic. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, anytime. Bye.